Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean, I forgot our opening. Laura and I have been talking for
This
an hour.
is on Wednesdays We Read, the podcast.
Okay, I can do it. Sorry. We were talking for an hour before we got on, and then I got confused. Okay, let's revamp
We're
that.
here, everyone. I'm not going to edit this out.
No, don't edit it out. Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays We Read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now, we are peeking into the Greenbone saga, and we are beginning the last book
Jade
of this
Legacy.
series, Jade Legacy. We're covering chapters 1 through 21 today.
This book is crushing me.
It's
all
so
of the worst and best ways.
I just can't believe how well executed it is. We'll get into it, but before that,
I can't wait to talk to Fonda Lee.
I can't wait to talk to her about
I have a bone to pick.
A green bone.
Several.
Laura, what are you reading and watching and or enjoying right now?
Okay, so I have been reading, I'm not finished with it, but I've been reading Before the Shattered Gates of Heaven, Volume 1 by Bryan S. Glosemeyer. So I'm in my sci-fi era, and this is an indie book, and this is a collection of novellas from what I can tell, and it follows it's like an interstellar, like war type scenario, but the first novella, you follow an unnamed girl who has been part of these fighting pits, and she was given a choice to either become like a fighter and try to fight her way out of these pits and like work her way up and gain status through her wins, or she was able to become what is called a hen, where she just continues to birth more like servants basically to be in these pits and to like produce for the entire a very Handmaid's Tale situation, I guess.
I was actually thinking more Mad Max Fury Road. Like you have
I have
like
never
those
seen
options. Oh, you okay. Well, never mind. But okay,
no idea.
No idea.
No idea on that. But I'm trying not to like spoil too much, because in the first volume the girl is unnamed. So I don't even want to say the name, because I'm at the part where we have reached a name has been given and everything, but I'm like halfway through, and this book is really I didn't know what to expect, honestly. When I have the ebook, so I opened up the document and I'm like, okay, the cover honestly was a little scary to me.
Okay.
There's a face of like a woman or a person on the front, and they have like a bunch of tattoos on their face, and then there's like almost like a diamond like background, and I was like, is this a robot? I don't know what I'm looking at here. Is this some kind of like AI? I was a little concerned, and Hannah, I'm terrible about judging a book by its cover. As I started reading this, like the first volume, it's so intense and so like easy to connect with the main character and want them to be able to work their way out of the situation that they're in, that I really became absorbed in this. And then when we get into the second part of the book, we're following this character as they're starting to try and make a name for themselves within this community that they've worked their way up into. And now they're being given missions. It becomes really complicated as far as like the dynamics between the girl and the other people that are at like her same level, and also like the dynamics between her and people that are higher up than her, people that she knows from other different like sanctions in this world, and also like their bloodlines and some of the privilege that she has. So there's all these different parts at play, and I'm not doing a good job describing this. I'll probably write a review so I can like have some more cohesive thought processes.
Yeah, of course.
Put it up on the blog, so then people aren't like, wow, she really described that poorly. But this is actually a really great book. And I did have to stop to read Jade Legacy, but I'm really enjoying this. And if you're in a sci-fi era and you're kind of looking for something maybe a little more dystopian, a little more action, fighting, I would say check this out if you're into that kind of thing. I know a lot of people don't like get into the dystopian stuff of it all and are less interested in things related to like servitude and stuff like that. But this is very interesting to me, this book, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the book plays out and how the missions go and stuff like that, and how some of these dynamics between the characters play out, because already some of the relationships have kind of surprised me as far as like enemies becoming friends or more. And it's fascinating, honestly. I'm pleasantly surprised because the cover scared me a lot. I'm pleasantly surprised, and I am kind of like thinking that I'll want to read the next one, because I think there's a volume 2, and I'll update the next episode because I'm sure I'll have finished this by then. But yeah, kudos to the author, because this is one that kind of hooks you from the beginning. So very interesting. Another book that I've been reading is Spy Family, and let me look up I'm sure everyone has heard of this by now. It's a graphic novel, a manga. Let me find the author.
Laura has been trying to get into her manga era after.
I have been, because I've heard a bunch of people talking. I was looking for like recommendations on graphic novels, and I'm kind of into like more like the cutesy type stuff, not as much of the like. I did watch the anime a long time ago. Now I can't even think. Attack on Titan, and that's pretty brutal. But I was thinking of like getting into like some of the mangas that are more like cutesy and fun and a little more precious. And so I had reached out for some suggestions, and I believe it was Sarah over at Fiction Fans podcast that had recommended Spy Family. So I read the first volume. Now I have to wait forever because everyone loves these books. But Spy Family Volume 1 by Tetsuya Endo and Natalia Ferreira. And these books this volume was adorable. We follow a spy who learns that on his mission, he needs to infiltrate a school to become closer to a target. And in order to infiltrate that school, he's going to need a kid. And also, in order to get that kid into this school, he's going to need a wife so they can portray the perfect family. So he ends up going to a orphanage and adopting a child who, unbeknownst to the spy, is telepathic, which is an amazing twist. And because she's telepathic, knows that he's a spy. He has no idea she's telepathic. And then in his quest to find a wife to complete the perfect family mirage, he finds a woman who, unbeknownst to him, is an assassin. So they together are trying to get into this school, and the new husband and wife are kind of unsure why they're doing what the motives are here of each other, but it's so cute and wholesome for like a spy and an assassin marriage.
That's
a spy
amazing.
and an assassin or like fake marriage. And I just think it's really, really cute. And the daughter is especially cute, and I just have really, really liked it. So thank you for that, Rick. That was a great one, because that was just what I needed, honestly, when I was asking for manga recs. And I'll save my other manga for next time maybe. But then I did read a graphic novel that I went way back into Jones in the Books archive on Instagram to find a rec, but they had read On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden and recommended it. And this was a while ago. This is a sci-fi graphic novel, and it follows the character Mia, who is traveling around with this group of people, and they are fixing up like these sites. And some of them are historical sites, some of them are not. And they're just traveling throughout the galaxy and trying to fix up these sites together. And we get flashbacks of Mia's time when she was in school and her connection to this other girl that she misses and kind of had a bad breakup / ending with, and would kind of like to repair that. It becomes a really heartwarming book. And at the end, I think it definitely won me over. I will say at the beginning, I was unsure that it was flashbacks at first. It was really hard to like kind of notice the flashbacks, and the characters are all drawn in a way that their faces look identical. So
Okay.
even though they have like slightly different hairstyles, if you go to a flashback, they might have a little bit different hairstyle in that flashback. So it's hard to tell if this is a different
Okay.
character or not.
Yeah.
And once I got into like the rhythm of the graphic novel, it was okay. But yeah, it did win me over at the end. And I was like, okay, I really, really like this. And I was getting pretty absorbed in the characters. But I was told it was a webcomic originally, and that might be kind of some of the choppiness of it all and how it was
Okay.
hard for me to kind of pick up on it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that needs to be mentioned about this book is that the characters, like those drawings, are not what makes this book so beautiful. It's like the landscapes of outer space and some of the different like areas that they're in.
Right.
Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I could look at some of those for like hours because they're just so pretty, and I would often find myself like just turning back and looking at a certain page for a while because I was like, this is just really beautiful, and the time that it took to make this, I just really appreciate that kind of thing with graphic novels.
Yeah. I love how much you love artwork and graphic novels. I feel
I
like
really
sometimes
do.
I don't appreciate it as much, but it's like a very Laura thing to appreciate. So I do love that.
And I don't know if it's just because I'm like such a sucker like, and this is also me in other books. In novels, I'm a big sucker for prose. If people write
Right.
something really pretty, they could literally be talking about the septic system in a home. If they write it prettily, I'm going to be like, wow, I just really connected with that. And I really loved it. I also just have like deep, like, like feelings about like seeing sunsets and nature and stuff like that. So like when I'm outside, I feel so connected to nature, and I just love seeing pics of animals and being out like in nature myself and experiencing those kind of things. So then when I see artwork and stuff like that, I also just become like kind of immersed in it, I think.
Right.
And so when I'm reading a graphic novel, I think it's that same experience where I just feel immersed in it and really appreciative of the time that it took and the beauty of it all. So that to me is almost like the prose in a novel, and being in nature and the artwork. It all like kind of feels connected to me in a way.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. But that's kind of all I've got at this point, because we're just talking about books right now.
Yeah, we are. For everyone who doesn't know and hasn't seen on our Twitter or in our comments, we are supporting the SAG-AFTRA strike right now. Stand in solidarity with those who want fair wages. If you haven't heard much about it, make sure you're reading up on it. So we can't really talk much about certain things that we love to talk about, which is TV. But I'm glad that you're getting to read lots of manga for the podcast right now and open up a few extra things. So that's exciting. But
Hannah, what have you been reading?
Well, I will say for watching Still in Solidarity, Laura and I watched some Taskmaster over on our Patreon. As everyone knows, Hannah loves Taskmaster, and you got to see some of the weirdest ones. I feel like it didn't have a good representation of what Taskmaster
I had no
was.
idea what that show is about, and I said this on Twitter, I'm still unsure, but I just stand by that because it was a lot of gross food stuff.
I will say we found out afterwards on our Patreon Discord channel, specifically for members of the Patreon, that one of the people on the show who we were watching, like all the things that they were making, like the co-host do, Alex, we were like, he's not getting paid enough. He's not getting paid enough. Apparently he's like one of the head people for ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
So like it's all based on him.
I was also messaging Jones in the Books about this, and I was like, I'm like, they're not paying that assistant enough. And he was like, he's doing fine. He comes up with all of the tasks. He does it to himself. He gets paid plenty. Don't worry about him. And I was like, I'm still worried.
Fair enough. I mean, it was only because we had to see him sit on a cake, and I'm still unwell after
I'm
seeing
bothered by that.
Like, that one bothered me so much. Some of the stuff, I mean, he's a comedian in his own right. Like, he has great acting chops in that show,
Sure.
but I love it so much. We watch some of the worst content that has stuck with me to this day. So, I hope you guys go over to our Patreon if you want to look at that, because it was a fun episode. And
really
I got to
was.
Laura watched some terrible Taskmaster items. So I will say that we can discuss that. And then for reading, I recently finished Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. It was a fan favorite of last year. And it is about to maybe be something that we can't discuss because we're standing in solidarity, but I read Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I really enjoyed this book. It is about a chemist who was born in the early 1960s, and she is trying to make a life during a very sexist time. And it's about kind of her life and the way she builds it, and her daughter, when she decides to kind of become a television host in order to support her daughter, even though at the utmost she wants to be a wife, or not a wife, she wants to be a chemist. She really doesn't want to be a wife. She's anti-wife. But I really enjoyed this book. I really loved the love story in it. I thought it was very nice to see in the 1960s. I really liked the storyline. I thought it was a throwback. Again, we've discussed this on the pod. We've discussed this book specifically a little bit, but we talked about, I thought it was kind of a throwback to chick lit, which people don't love that term. I kind of think we should reclaim it, because some of the best books,
revive it.
I'm ready to revive it, because I think a lot of people are like, chick lit, it's just saying that literature is for men. And I'm like, no, I think there's a certain brand of chick lit that is meant for pure enjoyment and meant to bring joy. And I think that instills that kind of verbiage kind of instills a certain brand that brings you happiness, even though it is introspective and it does have moments of sadness in it. I don't know, some of the best chick lits that came out of early 2000s materials, when lots of women were enjoying reading and watching rom-coms, came from chick lit genre, like Bridget Jones's Diary and things like that. And I just think we can really reclaim that.
I agree with you on that, because I think that I think it's also just one of those things where people are like, do women need another label? You already have women's fiction. And it's they're very different.
They're very different
things though, because I think women's fiction, and I think White Oleander by Janet Fitch, where it's deeply personal, crushing moments throughout a woman's life. And that's kind of how I think of women's literature, where it's more serious and not very fun.
Well, I also think women's literature is the one that should have the literature moniker. The literature moniker should exist for all brands, whether women or men, because why do men just get fiction and women get women's fiction?
Right.
I don't think we need the moniker when it comes to fiction, but chick lit is a very specific brand that is light poppy fiction that is very genre in and of itself. And I don't think that people should mind that as much, but people are like, well, it has just as much of a right. And I'm like, yeah, but so does romance. So does and Lessons in Chemistry is not a romance. It is and it's not deep esoterical fiction. It is chick lit. And I think that it's wonderful to have that. And I think the book has specific things that were reinforced, unfortunately, where in the book, they talk about how the woman hates things that are made for women that has pink on the cover. And the American version of this book has pink on the cover and looks very feminine. And it's why does chick lit have to look like that? That's a conversation we can have. But the fact that it can exist doesn't bother me. So I very much enjoyed that book. I think everyone should read it. I think it's fun. I think it has some deeper moments and some sadness, and I think it's adorable. So loved that. Read it. I also and this is women's fiction or actual fiction versus chick lit. I read August Blue by Deborah Levy. I believe Deborah Levy, lots of people have read her books before. She's kind of known for psychological fiction that gets deep in the character. This
Never
is
heard of her.
First of her. But lots of people love her. I've read some reviews that is this isn't even her best one. I really liked it. This kind of fiction, which is like, it's just on the cusp of stream of conscious writing, where
Okay.
like it does still have like some plotting, some very specific like tonal like changes, and some things of like you're getting in someone's head but you are seeing the full picture, where stream of conscious usually has like ebbs and flows of like what's reasonable, what's not. I don't think it's stream of conscious, but I actually like things that go up to stream of conscious, not over, and I would say that this book applies.
Okay.
It is about a piano virtuoso who was a former child prodigy, who's now in her 30s, and she had a recent comeuppance where she like walked off the stage during something, like after she failed to play what she was supposed to be playing, and she's just having a moment during the pandemic actually of like loss and suffering and like figuring out what's right for her, and she's kind of like flowing in and out, and she begins to think that she sees her doppelganger throughout the streets, and she seems to
Mm.
recognize it's not, but she feels like it is. Like she feels like she keeps seeing herself and she's trying to find her, but like it's a very weird thing where I'm like, is she seeing her, is she not? I'm not sure that's the point, but like it is about like a very weird visceral feeling of trying to find oneself after like
Hmm.
lots of stuff has happened to you. During this time she was adopted by this man who took care of her all of her life. He is dying, and like there's a lot of like feeling guilty because you don't have the connection to this person who was a parental figure but also wasn't, and like what do you owe him versus what don't you, what does he owe you as like the person who he put a lot of weight on, you know.
Hmm.
It's a
Hmm.
very weird book. It's very short, but it really gets deep into character introspection, which is like, I like going into those type of books.
Hmm.
So the book really worked for me, but I also think it's one of those books, like one of the perfect things that I feel like people should check off on their bingo list on this podcast is Hannah saying like, if you read this book and you said you hated it, I wouldn't be surprised, because like some of
Okay.
my favorite books have that. Um, but I got it from FSG and I very much enjoyed it. And if this isn't Deborah Levy's best book, I can't wait to read more of her, because I think I could really
Okay.
get into the way she writes and the way she like finds things and like storylines. So I read that, and to, you know, get it, because I had already talked a little bit about lessons in chemistry, I will do a final book of I read I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay.
Okay.
And I thought it was fine too. I didn't really like it.
I thought you were gonna say something else. I wasn't ready for, and I hated it.
I kind of like, I didn't think I hated it when I finished it. Like I gave it 3 stars originally, and now that I like think about it more and more, I'm like, I think it should have been 2. Like I think it should have been 2. I just
I am, you know how like people are like, oh, you just rate it immediately. I'm actually kind of a big fan of people like rating it how you feel at the moment and then like thinking about it quite a while. I don't care how long it takes me to think about it. If I go back 2 years later and I'm like, actually, I think that book was 3 stars instead of 4, or
Mhm.
I think that book was 5 stars instead of 3, I'm going to do it, because if I think about a book that much,
Yeah.
I think it deserves to have the rating change.
So I listened to it as an audiobook.
Okay.
I own the book. I will be donating it after this because I really just didn't like it all that much.
Fair.
It's like about, it's kind of like a mystery, but like a high fiction mystery.
Okay.
Where this like successful film professor and podcaster who like does a true crime podcast, like returns home to her like old boarding school, and you find out about like her history and why she was at the boarding school. But like while she was there, her former roommate was murdered way back
Mm.
when, and like they weren't that close, but like she kind of pushes, she's hosting like a podcasting class, and she like pushes these kids to like open up and do an investigation. And then halfway through the book there's a huge shift on like who did it, what happened thing. At the end of the day, I just didn't really like, it's supposed to be very highbrow fiction, I think,
Mhm.
for true crime people who are like, look, I love true crime, but I read literature, you know? And
Right.
it just didn't work for me because, like, I don't know if you need that with this kind of story. Like, do you really need
Yeah.
well-written mysteries like this? Like, maybe, but it just didn't work for me. I thought this book also like it it fell into one of the worst things I think you can do as an author nowadays, which is wanting to be like, I recognize all the issues of this book, but then I'm still going to reinforce them. So like a
I
ton of
don't
this
like
book
that.
was like, hey, this is Bodie Kane. She is a cis white het woman who does true crime podcast. She knows it's a problem, but she's going to do it the right way because she recognizes her own failings. And then like goes on to find out like her ex-husband, or the husband she's estranged from. Spoilers for this book, because like don't read it. It's a really long book and I'm not sure it's worth your time. But like, and I won't give away the mystery of it, but certain parts of it will be ruined. You find out like her husband kind of gets me too'd by someone, but then when you like, she does an investigation into it, and really it was just someone who was overly sensitive. But Bodhi Kane does believe women. It's just this one situation. Her husband didn't deserve what he got. And it's like, it was just
not a fan of that.
I just wasn't a fan of how many times there was like I totally understand where you're coming from, but also, you know,
but then like, flips it and is like,
yeah,
this scenario can happen.
And I was just like, I didn't get it. I didn't enjoy it. I honestly didn't know it was about like true crime podcaster doing mystery stuff. Like, I just
didn't figure it out until you're like, oh, I read the back of the book. Like, really?
I didn't even read the back of the book. I just knew it was really popular on Bookstagram. And sometimes I'll just pick up a book where I'm like, oh, it's really popular on Bookstagram. Guess I'll find out what this is all about. And then like, it was like, okay. And like, it just didn't make sense. It was very weird. I didn't like her. The way they like weave the story together just didn't make sense. It was just kind of dumb. Like I don't know. It also has like so much of like, I'm a boring white woman who does nothing in her life, but so much tragedy happened to me. And isn't that interesting? And it's like, not really. Like,
it's not.
And just so many things. And obviously like there is an inappropriately convicted Black man, and there is like, I don't want to be a white savior, but also I'm going to be a white savior, but at least I recognize it. Like, it's just liberal.
Like this book maybe needs its own bingo.
Right. Like, it was just one of those things where it's like, you know what people complain about like white liberals for? Mm-hmm. Like, this book was very much that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't very much like it. I didn't think it was that good. She is like the author is won like a Pulitzer Prize, or it was a finalist for a Pulitzer Prize in the National Book Award. So I'm sure she like the writing was good. I'm not saying the writing wasn't good, but I was saying like, I just don't understand why she had to write this book. And Weird. The last book I do own, I will read eventually, but like that one has a 4.27 rating on Goodreads, and this book has 3.68. So it feels like she just wanted to write like a pop culture fiction novel, but she was too good at writing for that. So then she just did this, and it really fell flat for me. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was that good, and it just kept wanting to have its cake and eat it too.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was way too long. The mystery was kind of boring, and it all felt like the same old crap over and over and over again. And Bodhi kind of sucked. She kind of sucked like as a character. And I think she's supposed to, but also you're in her head a lot, and she gets like told she's right a lot for someone who sucked that bad. So,
sure.
That is that. So those are the 3 books I'm going to discuss.
Yeah, you mentioned like books that are popular on Bookstagram or like TikTok or whatever. Do you have a specific book that you've heard a bunch of people talking about that you're like, I need to read this just to figure out if the hype is real? Are there any that are like on your list at the moment?
Well, I mean, I can't wait to read wait to read Legends and Lattes. Super pumped to read that for the podcast. A little bit of a hint, nudge to all of our listeners.
Yeah.
And right now I'm actually reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zepin, which is also very much
that's a Bookstagram
darling. Everyone has read it. So I think I am a little bit like right now I'm either reading books for the podcast or books that are just like so hyped it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think I'm at the moment where like I'm doing this right now because that's where books have led me, just based on our personal needs. And then just like some of the, like most the things I just listed, I think we're both covering on the podcast, hopefully. And so just so you guys know, so it's like, oh, we're reading like very hyped books. That's very exciting to do. But also I'm like looking at my walls because like I just moved. All my books are like sitting on a shelf, like on top of my mantle on my fireplace. And there are certain books where I'm like, You know what? That book hasn't really been hyped, but I remember I was obsessed with it when I saw it. I can't wait to read it. And so I think I'm more going for like under hyped books right now.
Okay. Fair.
And I think I'm more interested in that. Laura, are there any books that you're super like hyped to read?
I mean, I wouldn't say a hyped to read, but I have seen so many people talking about that Fourth Wing book that I am
Oh,
interested. I am interested.
There was a night when it was like first blowing up everywhere. Fourth Wing was blowing up everywhere. And there was like 2 copies at the Target nearby on my way home from work.
You got one.
I was so close to buying it. And then I opened TikTok and a girl was like, listen, guys, it's just not worth it. You think it is now. Don't do it. And I literally opened up the comments on that video and said, thank you. I needed that, and moved on with my life.
People are getting intense over that book. I'll just say that. Like, there have been giveaways on Bookstagram that people have given away like extra copies, and the way that people in the comments have come for them if they didn't win it, or that the giveaway was unfair and all this. It's like, it's a giveaway. People are just trying to be nice. Let them do it the way they want to do it. Calm down. Sorry you didn't win. But I am intrigued, because there's certain books like that where it's like, I could be missing something, that maybe there's something really problematic about it, but I've yet to hear anything like super problematic about the author or about the book itself. And it's just like a lot of people that are very obsessed with this book at the moment. And I'm not going to buy it, but it's on Scribd. So
Okay.
I lucked out.
Well,
I guess I technically bought it with my subscription, but.
So I kind of wonder if it's one of those things where it's like, we're going to read it. And like you and I keep saying we're not fantasy aficionados. And I wonder at what point where like the podcast has to take the turn where it's like, well, we've read quite a few series. So like, yeah, we're not like experts, but we know what we're talking about a little bit more than when we started out. And
I still feel like if I were to enter a fantasy circle and people were like, oh, have you read this? I'm like, oh, I've read no Sanderson.
So I don't know if okay, so that's the thing, is I don't think you and I are like confident enough to walk in and be like, well, that's a typical Sanderson novel. But I think you and I are like, hey, that is the chosen one trope. Hey, that is this trope. Hey, that is you and I are like able to recognize certain standards in fantasy novels because we have read like a couple of different ones in different types of genres, you know?
Sure.
And so I do wonder if Fourth Wing will fall into that, like where you and I have read certain books where it's like, I don't get the appeal. Like when you read Carry On before, I read Carry On before we started this podcast by Rainbow Rowell, and you read it after we had already read a couple series, and you were like, I just don't get the point. And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, if I read it today, I think I wouldn't like it. Like, I think it was a very specific time in my life where it was very easy to pick up. And now that I'm where I'm at, I wouldn't like it. And I do wonder if Fourth Wing would fall into that for us personally.
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Read it and get back to me, because TikTok talked me out of it. So
I don't think it's one that's like on my immediate TBR by any means, because I have a bunch that I needed to get to. Because I saw your post about Witch King earlier. It wasn't about Witch King.
I want to read it.
Witch King was in it, and I pre-ordered Witch King, and it's been sitting in my shelf all this time, just staring at me. Read it, and I have not done it yet. But so I've got like Witch King, I've got Yellowface, I've got a bunch of other ones that I've been meaning to read and have not yet. So I don't think that Fourth Wing is like high on my list. It's just, it's gotten so much hype that I am intrigued.
I get it. I get it, but no.
And I also think too that this is maybe just like the SJM following that has now jumped over to Fourth Wing. That's
the same way I feel about like Holly Knight or something. There's like, I don't know. There are a couple people who I'm like, I'm never going to read that. That's okay. Like, I don't know, but I'm glad you're reading it, so I don't have to. Let's put it that way. Write a review.
I haven't read it.
I know, but you will, and I'll be so glad when you did it. We'll see. I mean, we'll see, Hannah. There's a lot of books out there. But with that, Laura, should we dive into a book that definitely lives up to the hype, because we both love it so much? Jade Legacy by
Jade
Fonda
Legacy.
Lee. And again, we start with fan favorite Barrow.
Ugh.
He's helping two of the clanless people break into the
Mhm.
double using his job and his work key. And I'm like, man, they gotta have better security that like tells what key cards let people in. This would have been so much more effective.
They're able to use perception and pick up on like jade auras and like tell all these things like this person is trustworthy. How can no one see through this damn barrel? And
he's lucky.
Too lucky.
But anyway, he hides in a staircase as they set up bombs, and he's like, "Why can't I be in there? I'd be better than them at that."
We need you for your job. Just
for
shut
a man
up, Barrow.
has so many useful points about like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have like a clan-filled society. Hey, maybe these people are bad people. Hey, you really hate him, like with a deep passion.
Oh, I cannot stand Barrow.
But anyway, they tag the windows of the double. The future is clanless. Dun dun dun. And then this section does start us with a very specific theme in this book of the let's give you the year and the month that we are currently in. And we are starting
post when Hilo has become pillar.
Yes. So we're starting in the 6th year of Hilo's pillarship. And Hilo and Shay are with a few of the high-earning lantern men at the Twice Lucky. And they ask about when, and we find out that her recovery has been taking time. She has to relearn everything, and like Hilo's a little bit sensitive about it. We also learn that Shay has definitely not been forgiven by Hilo. He is very short and curt with her. The lantern men who are meeting with them want to defect the mountain, but want to do it openly in the way they should, where they're like, we're petitioning for you to give us a different rate. If you do not, we will have to deflect. We have no other choice. And they're like,
which they're like, why is it so why is the mountain offering like such low rates? We don't understand what's going on here. How can they do that?
Well, and also they have like, they're like, you have to offer us less in tributes, and you have to stop going over to Aspenia for money. And Shay is like, how is that going to work? Like, you're just asking us to be poor.
Yeah, she's like, that's where we get our money from. You want more money, that's where our money comes from.
And you guys are making us lose it on both sides. And they are like, well, we don't care. Figure it out. The mountain can figure it out. Why can't you?
We care about our country.
Yeah.
And then not having to pay a lot of money because that's what the mountain says.
Exactly. There's one man who's sitting there kind of silently, and Hilo calls him out as the leader of the group and says that like, Aitmata has been giving you money right now, and you've already defected, and you haven't done it the right way. And she paid you to get these men to defect. And the man doesn't really admit to it, but he does like lay out all the losses he has received. Like he has lost children, he has lost like stature, he has lost everything. And Hilo does kind of feel regret for this man having that. But when the man asks for a death of consequence, Hilo flat out refuses him. He's like, nope, you get to die by the blade. Like you get to die with a blade, but that is it. Or he gets a death of consequence, but the man asks to die by blade. And Hilo says, no.
He wants to duel Hilo basically. Yeah. And Hilo's just like, no, I'm not wasting my time on a traitor. That's not happening.
And the guy's like, well, you're a coward now. And Hilo's like, no, I'm just like smarter than I used to be. And you're an idiot who's a traitor.
Like,
so why
no, I have a family. I'm not going to be doing this.
Right. And so he goes to execute the man. The man opens fire. They're able to stop it. The man is killed. And Shay is like, Hilo, how did you know that man worked for the mountain? And Hilo's like, I took a gamble. I figured it was that, but who knew?
Like, I kind of guessed by the way that he was talking.
And she like chastises him for not trusting her more, like discussing this. And he's like, yeah, you don't listen to me. You don't respect the pillar. The pillar is the word, and you're questioning me to this day. And he tells her to figure out how the mountain is outspending them on all sides. He leaves Tar behind, and we find out he's going to the Lilac Divine and sleeping with sex workers there. They hate him there because
he's super rude.
He's super rude. He's like, the Lilac Divine is well known as like a specific type of club that is supposed to give an experience, and he is using these women like they are vessels for him to like eke out some aggression on.
Because like typically they have like skills that they like either read poetry or they play songs on instruments or something like that.
You're there for a connection and an experience.
Yeah, it develops a relationship.
Right. And it is like they're sex workers. This is their job. They want it. They signed up for a specific type of experience themselves, and Hilo will not do that. And he is like, I have a wife. I have a fulfilling life. He's like,
I don't need the emotional connection.
Yeah. And so it's very frustrating to them. And they're like, well, then you can go elsewhere, but they can't say no to a pillar. So it's very frustrating. He goes back home, and when is asleep, she has difficulty talking and has been in a lot of physical therapy, relearning how to do everything. She wakes up and she tries to like ask him what's going on. He doesn't really, he's pretty curt with her. He like fluctuates between kindness and just very sharp disdain a little bit. And she tries to
I don't even know if it seems like kindness, almost just like pity. It came off to me.
That is very accurate. He pities her a lot, and she's like obviously struggling with that. And she tries to like be his wife that she always was, and she tries to get him to invite Shay over to be with the kids, but he doesn't listen. And like he feels very angry and vindictive. But he also is very scared of losing her. And there's a lot of like complicated emotions between him and Gwen during this time, where they'll have moments where it's like it might have been better if she had just died, and that's like very sad.
That they both think that, and it's crushing.
We cut back to the banquet hall where Shay was just left by Hilo. We have like a flashback that doesn't happen very often. She's frustrated that Hilo saw something that she didn't in the situation. And she knows that he's right when he says that she has to figure out what's going on, but she also knows he doesn't trust her, and it's harming the clan. She talks to Woon, who stood in front of her during the shootout, and she feels some type of way about it, because of course she does. Then they go to see Hami, who has recently returned back to John Loon with a new role, where he is no longer going to be over in Espedia. He's like gained some weight. He's like more Espedian now, drinking coffee. And he no longer wears his jade. And she's like, well, if you want to put it back on, you can, or not. And he's like, yeah, probably not for a while. Like, I have a new role. It means I'm going back and forth a lot, and it is difficult to like take it on and off. They're worried about the anti-jade laws in Espedia, and they're like maybe going to outlaw any business that touches upon jade, because they see it as a criminal organization, which would technically include the No Peak clan. Shay pushes back, pointing that they like Espedia has too much jade in the military to be that hypocritical, and Hami is like, not really. Like, they'll do what they want. They're hypocrites. During this time, Woon's wife apparently calls, and someone's like, your wife's on the phone. He's like, I'm busy. And it's like, oh, you suck. You're so much.
Terrible husband. Okay.
And I get it. Like, it's got to be hard when you have a very demanding job, but like to react that way is not great. No. Everyone leaves, and Shay's like, dude, go call your wife. And he, like, again, inappropriate conversations with somebody you have feelings for. He tells Shay that his wife had another miscarriage, and she's been needing him more, and it doesn't compute with the job. He then does ask to leave the position again, saying that he like needs time for his home life. And she says she will find like a role for him, and she does accept it now because things have changed. We cut on over to Mike Tarr, who is murdering Skinny Reams from the last book. He's trying to pull his biggest, like, you mess with my sister, you don't even know who we are. But Skinny Reams also is just racist during this section.
Oh, just, like, terrible.
And just blames everything on the Kekanese people. The people with Tar are horrified when Tar tells them to leave so he can torture Reams, where they're like, hey, we agree that you got to kill him because of what he did to Ron and Wen, but like, it can't go further than that. And he's like, nope, get out. This is my deal.
He's like, I'm doing it the way I want to. And they're just like, oh gosh, this is terrible.
And then we cut on over to the call house where they're celebrating New Year's. They're trying to make it look like they aren't on hard times and aren't being pressed for money by the mountain by making everything look very lavish. Wen can't move around as much and is frustrated with the fact that she has to be seated the entire time with Hilo. He keeps floating between angry and like, again, pity and like trying to like baby her a little bit.
It's one of those things where I think he doesn't know how to handle her ability at this stage that she's in. And so he feels uncomfortable too, where it's like a pity and uncomfortable. And so he wants to like rush her to a table or grab her arm and like do things for her. And it's like, she can do it. It's okay. You just have to have a little patience, for which he has none.
Yeah. And it talks about how like she's very calm with Andon, so she has an easier time talking. Like she has to have like very low stress, but she's constantly like trying to comfort Hilo in these moments, and that adds to stress because then he's not happy with her, and it makes the situation worse, and then he doesn't know how to react to the situation, and it like it's spiraling out of control. She reminds him it's their anniversary, and he literally goes, sure. And it's like, that sucks so much. Like,
why are you the worst?
it's noted like she is harmed by this. She does practically like live for Hilo's love, and she did expect some kind of falling out when he found out like her involvement with this stuff, but she just expected to be able to explain herself and make him understand as she would have once upon a time. She talks to Woon's wife, who's talking about what like Wen's children, etc. It's like, wow, we have to pull in Woon's wife to just like rip her to pieces and make her the worst character, and also not a character at all.
This whole Woon Shay Kira thing.
I'm just glad there were a bunch of time jumps, so I didn't have to sit in it for very long. I was like, I guess this is happening now. Like,
it makes me so uncomfortable.
Helpful. Yeah,
so uncomfortable. Like the situation between Wen and Hilo is very uncomfortable. It's deeply uncomfortable. However, the situation between
tragic, like it's sad because you know there's so much tragic love there, and you know like there's frustration
and there's a lot of betrayal just like bubbling under the surface. Yes, there's so many emotions versus like the Shay and Woon
who are like just like 12-year-olds being like, well,
they're teenagers, and she's like, oh, he's handsome in a way that Maru wasn't. And it's like, oh my gosh,
I'm sorry, the lack of sexual tension between those two is so palpable. Like I never it's like reading about like him like Hilo calling Wen Kitty in the first book versus like this now is like two adults having a relationship. It's like, why is Shay like a consummate child when it comes to men? I do not understand. Like I never intended this, and it's like I think it's supposed to be
no idea this would happen. No idea. Like really,
you've made out with him at least twice now, so like you did know this would happen. Your consequences have action, or your actions have consequences. Right. Like come on, girl. I also think like they're supposed to be like the quote unquote honorable people, and it just kind of falls flat with like all their actions. Like I think that's what it's supposed to be, because like, well, he's just so honorable, he'll never leave his wife, and it's like, no, he'll cheat on her. Like that's not honorable. Like, are you kidding me? Like it just doesn't make sense. Whatever. So anyway, Woon's wife is obviously grieving because she just suffered a miscarriage. She's talking to Wen about her children. And then Wen chats with Andon, who's in medical school studying. They're still close and talk about like the harm they have felt after the situation in the last book. And then as they're at dinner, they find out that a Yucatecan spy ship was just shot down in the Yuman Islands where Aspenians are located. And they found out that the Royal Council session will have like an emergency session the next day. She goes to tell him to talk to Shay, and she knocks over her tea. And like she's frustrated and she's upset because it's just happened. And he's like, you're tired. And he takes her upstairs. She's frustrated and she's crying as he undresses her because she feels very frustrated, very unheard. It also notes at this point that she does know about the Lilac Divine and that Hilo goes there, and she thinks about how Hilo isn't himself around her when they like try to have sex anymore, and he's just he's too gentle, and it's just not what she wants. She also thinks about like the time she was in love with Hilo and infatuated with him, and she literally slashed her brother's tires and let a neighborhood kid take a fall for it so that Hilo would have to come pick them up. And she thinks about how like slashing tires or being a stone eye can have such an effect on the world. And then Hilo leaves her in the room. The clans meet the next day about the spy plane. Shay is trying to get through to Hilo about Wen, and he just like throws out like a temper tantrum, and he's just like, well, look at you and Woon. Why would I take experience from you? And it's like, yeah, it does seem like they're really bad.
Fair point, Hilo.
Fair point. He makes great points when it comes to
Hilo. It's
the one time you're right. It's always about Shay and Woon. And so he goes like, tell him how you feel or fire him, because like this isn't working for either of you. And it's like, well, that's actually not working for me accurate either. Like it's not working for any of us. He's not wrong. Okay,
please put us out of our misery.
We meet a new general character who was a former mountain person who became a soldier and is now at the head of the military. And he walks in and he's like, hey, clans, you kind of suck. Like you've made us weak. Like we need to be strength in numbers. So what I'm asking for is for more money, for more Jade, and for us not to have like picked over people who come to the military because they're not getting strong enough in the clans, because then they bring in clan infighting. And like if we could get recent grads, they're like more likely to be loyal to the military. And it's like I could see where that might be a problem for the clans, but also like it is a time of war. Come on, guys. And he's like, we need this, or else like the Yucatanians could try to occupy Kekon. The mountain is quick to agree to this if all the others will join. And it's like,
because it doesn't want to have to make the decision. It's like,
Well,
if we say if everyone else will join in, we'll do it.
It's
and
also
it's like okay, so then you don't have to decide.
Why are the Yucatanians trying to occupy us? Is it because you've been giving them Shine and Jade, and now they want more? Like, and they were the bad guys
this
all
whole
along.
Game.
Like, the Espedians are also horrible people, but like also like at least there's some type of political intrigue going on with them. But the Yucatanians just want occupation. But sure, whatever. And their weatherman isn't there, but like the ward, Ado, his uncle is there, who owns one of the local
Coben
radio stations. Yeah, Coben. He's
okay. So this is I'm just like picturing like kind of a Rush Limbaugh person where it's like a conservative radio host.
I also was, definitely a conservative radio host with a terrible beard.
Yes.
And so he speaks up and he talks about how they must fight against foreigners and they must all go together and da 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 da. Hilo is like, hey, you can have the money and the jade, but like we're not giving you our people. That's not happening. And Shay realizes too late that this is why I agreed so quickly, so No Peak would be the ones who said no and be killed in the press. Hilo tries to bring up the fact that Hilo is like, hey, we're not doing this. And It's like, wow, you won't help your nation? And Hilo's like, well, you're trying to steal my lantern men. And it's like, Hilo, don't bring that up. And she's
wrong place, wrong time.
And she's like, well, that is just a baseless accusation. And Shay is frustrated. Hilo isn't more diplomatic, but she's also bugged that he keeps outwitting her. They all leave with the small defense wins of like getting more jade and money. Hilo walks away from Shay and is like, I will get killed in the press before I let her kill us all. Which like, this is like good political intrigue because like, I don't know who's right in these situations. Like there are moments where I'm like, yes, I agree with like Aitmata, but also she's terrible. And I agree with Hilo, but also don't agree with Hilo. So, Shay is stopped by a smaller clan's weatherman that is within the mountain clans. He sneaks
kind of allegiance. There's all these smaller clans that have kind of given their allegiance to the higher clans, and this is one of them.
And they have like a high monetary power in the mountains. So he sneaks her into the elevator and asks her to visit Lukong, the second largest city in Kaikon. He gives her a card showing that he speaks for the pillar. She knows this is huge and may give them a huge leg up and harm Ait because they are huge moneymaker for Ait. Then we cut on over to Wound's going away party. And it talks about how small it is because literally no one likes Wound and shit. It's like,
and I was like, you know what? I was really hoping this would be the end of Wound.
I know.
And it's not.
It's not. He's here for the long haul. I just love that it's like the party was small because Wound and Shay are rough hangs and no one wants to be with them either. They're just making puppy dog out. Like this is the two people who have to get married because no one else likes them. Like that's
people are seeking out Barrow constantly. You know who they don't want to be with? Shay and Moon.
And everyone is like, hey, look, Hilo is terrible, but at least he knows. And like Wen loves him so much, so it makes sense. But like Woon and Shay, it's like, do you guys even like each other? Or does like no one else listen to the end of your conversation when you talk? But anyway.
Why?
Woon is like, I'm a little tipsy. I had 2 like hojis.
I had 2 drinks.
And Shay is like, I'll have you drop me off at my house and then you'll be all sobered up.
No, she's like, I'll drive you back to my place. You can sober up and then you can leave whenever you feel like it. Terrible idea
when you both have feelings with each other and he's married. Like there's certain things you just don't do, Shay. Here's
the thing. Don't they have like endless people at their disposal that could have just driven him home?
But it's because Shay wanted him to come back and be like, I'm so tortured with my love for you. And it's like, no, you're not.
Intentions of this happening.
Also,
I had no idea this could be the road that we go down.
Also in this book, she's constantly like, yeah, but Maro was probably a better like lover and I probably loved him more. And like, it's like, yeah, that's it. Like he's your second choice and you're his first choice. Like that sucks.
And that's the thing that's so frustrating about freaking Shay and these relationships is it's like, you know why you're saying this? Because he's not available anymore because he's dead. That's why you're saying this.
Just
That
go
now
be with-
he's the better choice. Really?
Honestly, just go be with Gerald. He probably was an even better choice than Woon. It seemed like he might have had a personality. I don't know. You were with him for many years. I don't understand. So
I
anyway.
wanted to think that Woon was like this good person and everything. And apparently he's very good at his job. But their relationship is so frustrating. And I cannot figure out what it is that like attracts them to each other. Like it doesn't make sense to me.
He makes her like, I actually really loved Shay, but anytime she is near Woon, he sucks out all the personality and she becomes the blandest piece of toast I've ever seen.
Shay is a great character until you start to put her in a relationship. And then I start to
not give a shit.
Kind of black out.
Yeah.
I can't handle it.
It's so bad. I don't understand. Yeah, I hate this so much. So anyway, they go back to her place. She makes them tea and she tells them about the clan and Liu Kang. And he wants to help her through this. And she's like, that's not your job anymore.
Like,
please
we hired somebody else to do this.
And he's
specifically asked me to do another job.
You specifically asked me to have less work. And this sounds like more work. And he's like, I can't give this to the other person. It's too important. You're too important to me.
Nobody's as good as me at this.
Oh my God. She's like, please don't. And then she admits that she used his guilt for Elan to keep him to help her for so long. And she knows he was going to be weatherman and then he wasn't, so she used that against him. And she's like, I couldn't have survived this long without you. And he's like, I wouldn't have been the best weatherman. You are, Shay. Maybe that's why she likes him, because he's like validating to all her amazingness.
Her constantly.
Maybe that's it, where she's like, you know what, I've been told I'm a piece of crap for way too long in my life, and this man loves me and worships me, so I must date him. And it's like, but he's so bad. He's married anyway. And so he's like, I should go. And she's like, you should stay. And then they make out and he stops and he's like, why are we doing this now? You could have had me at any moment. And she's like, well, there were different power dynamic differentials. And like, we both had people in our life.
It's like, you know what? Be honest, Shay.
Yeah.
You only want him now because of this.
And then
because he's unavailable.
And then he's like, dude, I'm still in a relationship. Like, you might not be, but I am. And he's like, I need to leave. And she's like, I just ruined our entire relationship.
I hope we can still be friends. Oops, that's awkward.
Oh my God. Anyway, Barrow's going to clanless future move-ins. He's hitting on a woman named Emma, which they have better sexual chemistry than Shay and Woon.
I'm rooting for that couple.
I'm rooting for them. It seems powerful.
It's like she's kind of interested in him. He's got something about him, you know. She's like, okay, I guess he's kind of like annoyingly charming.
Oh my gosh, this just reminds me of those TV shows. Like I can't remember what TV show it is, but it's like a TV show where she's like talking to her friends and she's like, just look at how sexy he is. It's just maddening, isn't it? And they like look over and he's just eating a chip. That is Shay and Woon. And it's like, he's driving me crazy. And he's just like cleaning up dip off his shirt. And it's like, what?
I feel like Shay doesn't even have anything like that she can find about Woon. It's just like literally a situation where it's like, not available, interested.
I don't know.
Dead. He was the perfect match for me.
Oh God. Yeah, you're right.
Really?
Just holds these men up on a fucking pedestal. Sorry, I'm cursing too much. Anyway, there's a Yucatecan man who enters the clanless movement and he says he wants to help them get out from the boot of the clan. And his name is Malovny. Then we got on over to Andon, who is being super doctor. He's super good at doing what he does and even like gets to do things that no one in his class does. Anything Andon does, he's fantastic at, Laura. He is Superman.
Honestly, I was not bothered by this because I was just like, you know what? Some people are like that where they're just like instantly good at everything. And this might be Andon.
I think the problem is I find Andon so also dry as milk toast in this book, where it's like, yeah, you're 31 and you haven't developed a personality yet. Like, what's going on? Like,
I don't find Andon as annoying as I did in the last book currently.
That's fair. I don't find him annoying. I find him boring. Like, I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, you seem to have just become.
I think wouldn't say that. Maybe I'm just at the point where I don't care so much
Yeah.
that I'm just like, it's fine.
That's fine. I'm more interested in what happens to Andon. I'm not interested in Andon, and I think that's the problem. Like a lot
and maybe
of
that's it,
interesting
where
stuff
it's like the
happens to
storyline
him.
surrounding Andon. Now I'm more interested, whereas
Mhm.
the last book, I'm like, I really don't care about your boyfriend.
I care a lot about what's going on around Andon. I don't give a crap about Andon. And
Yeah.
anytime he's like, "Oh, this is my character growth," I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." Like, you seem fine. Like,
Pass.
but pass. But anyway, uh, he gets invited by Aspenian doctors to come over to Aspenia to show off the biomedical engineering Jade, like how they use
Mhm.
Jade to help cure people. It's Eastern medicine versus Western medicine, pretty much, where they
Correct.
get to use like certain things to help with blood flow
It's
and
like
everything.
he's showing everyone acupuncture.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy reading about this because I thought it was a very useful tactic that Fonda Lee is using. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's super interesting for the world building of Jade. I don't really care about Andon using it, but okay. Anyway, so they want to bring him over, and he's like, I'm not as well versed. Why aren't you asking more people? And they're like, because you look white. And
Mhm.
that sucks so much. And he's like, oh,
Mhm.
great. It's because I'm biracial. Awesome. And they literally ask at one point, what are you? So microaggressions abound.
Yeah.
And aggressions, no, that's just aggressive.
I
Asking someone
say,
who they are, that's aggressive. Like,
yeah.
it's aggressive. I apologize. No, it's not a microaggression. It's just aggression. So
And it's
anyway,
also sad too that that's the reason he's targeted for this, where it's like they probably could have asked some other people that are maybe more capable to do this, but they specifically targeted him because they're like,
well, because he'll
you're,
be more effective. Like, that's the
yeah,
thing,
you'll
is
be
they
more
just
effective because
Mhm.
you actually are part Hispanian. And it's like,
Yeah. And people will rely on you more because you don't look different than them. Ugh.
yeah, no, terrible.
But anyway, he does go to the clan. He's like, I think it might be helpful if I go. And Shaya's like, I've gotten more boring now. Do you remember a time when you didn't want to go? It's like, Shay, go actually do your job for a while.
I'm so good at planning. Shay,
Shay
be quiet.
somewhere. What is it? Hashtag Shay or like, I'm so good at planning. Shay, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so in love with Woon. Shay, probably.
We're meant to be.
Anyway, it's also noted in this section, like, he's like, yeah, I only wear Jade if necessary because I murdered a very important person, so I have to take it off immediately at all times. He does go over to Aspenia to the college in Adamant Capita. He sees sights he's never seen before, and he gets to show off his skills. Then he goes to speak to Doc's daughter, who is a government official, and he's trying to push Jade acceptance. And she's quick to be like, I do not respect your nation. We are important. No, I'm important. I don't have to speak with you. I don't know why I'm talking to you. You're not a government official. And like, we follow our laws here. And it's like, oh, this is just.
And he's like, oh, I just thought that somebody who's Kokanese would also like relate to this. Okay, I'm sorry. And she's like, I'm a Spanian. And it's like, oh, okay,
it's
then.
just like, and she's like, my parents really value this, but they're immigrants, so they're idiots. And it's like, oh, this is awesome.
This
That's
is terrible. Okay.
Yeah. So he goes back to see the docs, and he sees the Hinds. For the last book, we see Corey, who is bringing over a woman from his law class. And he isn't as warm with him. He's not talking to him and calling him Islander. And it's like, yeah, you broke up with him. Like,
You guys aren't together anymore. It's fine.
Then poor
Andon,
Andon.
don't get
I
upset.
will say I do feel bad in this book where Andon's like, I can't just go out to a bar and pick someone up. I'm a freaking call. Like, it's not the same. And like, I was like, oh, that does suck. That's why you don't have a personality, right? But Andon goes on a walk with Doc, and he apologizes for his daughter, admitting he didn't do enough to teach her about the Kokanese ways. And he was like, yeah,
He's like, we focused so much on Cora that we totally forgot about our other kids.
Like, oh, I'm a little sexist, and I didn't know women were also people? Question mark. So that one's kind of on me.
Apologies for that oversight.
And then he tells Andon about Tar's actions, and he's like, dude, it wasn't okay. We have to like not
really
have
bad.
The ball dropped on us, and like, yeah, his body's missing, but like, this could be dangerous for us. And Andon's like, you did the right thing by telling me. I thought that was such a funny line. And he's like, you did the right thing by telling me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Andon, whatever.
It's one of those things where like Andon is always saying, I don't have any pull. I am not an important person. I'm not somebody you need to tell about things. And it's at the same time, he's like, thank you for telling me. I will report immediately to the pillar because I am closely connected to him.
I'm so sorry. This book, I was like, we've dropped any pretenses that like Andon is not Mr. No Peak Man. Like anytime he's like, I am not involved with clan business. I'm like, you're the most involved with clan business.
You're always involved.
You're always involved. You're up everyone's butts and you're trying to like negotiate for the No Peak clan.
Quit lying. You're very involved.
You're the most involved. Anyway. Hilo is going to a gym to meet with a soldier who was trained at Espenia, Jim Sunto. We found out he was born in Kikan, but was moved, and he's allowed to use Jade as a Navy angel, who's kind of like their Black Ops Special Forces people who use Jade. He was not a greenbone, but he does wear Jade on his dog tags, which I think is the coolest way to wear your Jade. I liked that for like this as a world building tactic.
Shay still had the coolest with the
the choker. I do like the choker.
That's just me.
I just thought I liked it with I was like, oh yeah, military green bone on your tags. Like that makes sense.
Fair.
Hilo suggests they go talk somewhere, but the man is like, nah, I'll talk here. And then Hilo immediately fights him, but I'm like, what's happening?
Like, fine, we will talk here. Fight. And it was very sudden.
It's just very weird. And then he's shocked to see how little the man relies on Jade, but how smart he is with a lot of it. And then Hilo's like, we're leaving. I'm going to go buy you a drink. And the man's like, oh, you're not trying to murder me? They go out and Sunto's like, I don't really care about you guys. I was a soldier for a long time. They wanted me to return. Instead, I train here. I make money and I live where I need to be a soldier. And like, I work within the confines of my life.
And Hilo's like, but how about you join us? And he's like, I don't know how I can impress upon you that I have no allegiance.
I do not care about you. When will I get my paycheck? Like, same guy, same. And so Hilo is like, I want you to help train Kekani's military. We're like in the bad press, like in his own mind, he's like, we're bad in the press. If I do this, it'll make me look good because it's showing that I do care and all this stuff. So the man agrees. Wen is at home and she puts on the dress that she was married to Hilo in. She's made dinner for him. He's surprised to see her and she says she sent the kids away. They're trying to have a nice time, maybe, I guess, but Hilo is also being the biggest dick to her. And
this is just like the most miscommunication and just like you want to just scream, talk to each other, you two.
Well, and she's like, do you remember that this is my wedding dress? And he's like, yeah. I mean, it looked better before. Everything looks better when you're about to die. And she's like, okay, well, I'm trying. I've had 2 children now. I obviously look different. And then like they're talking about Tar and she's like trying to be who they once were. So she's like, I don't think Tar and his girlfriend, Inro, who's met in another book. Yeah, she's a fist. We've met her in other books. She's like one of the harsher green bones. And she's like, I don't think they should be married. They're not good for each other. And he's like, I think they should. He'll calm down. And it's noted
that's not how that works.
Nope. And it's noted that since Andon told them about the issue at Espenia, they think that Tar is going black, which is a term that's kind of used when green bones have been like a little bit in the weeds for too long. A lot of times it could be the itches that are coming to you, but it could also just mean that you have a lot of trauma as a green bone and you might be getting more violent and more erratic. And it has nothing to do with the itches, but it has to do with the mood swings of just having this much energy in you. They note that he's also gotten more erratic with the kids, always telling them very bad stories, and he's gotten more bloodthirsty. Hilo's like, well, he deserves to be happy. And Wen kind of asks him straight up, like, well, what do the rest of us deserve? And he's like, what do you...
Right.
And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, do I deserve to be treated like this? Do you actually just want a divorce? And he blows up.
He reacts so poorly.
Yeah. And he like blows up and he's like, I gave you everything you ever wanted. And I only asked you to obey me in one way and you couldn't do it. And she points out that he put her in a safe little box that she didn't want to be in. And she says, you forced us to lie to you. And also not the right thing to say. You should never say someone forced you to lie. And then he says liars are as bad as thieves and he leaves. He goes to his car, but he can't leave because he doesn't know where to go. He thinks about going and having it out with Shay or drinking with Shay and he can't. He knows he needs other people. He's not someone who can do it all alone. And then he remembers Annan's words saying that the people in his life didn't need forgiveness. They just needed understanding.
Mhm.
He goes in and he tells Wen he didn't go anywhere. He says they made mistakes out of love, but they can't get divorced. She can never bring it up again. And then they have romantic sex, which is what I wrote down specifically.
This is like the point where they're like starting to kind of repair their relationship.
Right. Shay goes to Lukang with her new shadow, Luto. He doesn't have Jade abilities, and it grates on her that she can't just read him like she does to Woon, because Woon's so much better. We do find out that Woon shut down a conversation when she like came to him and was like, he's like, I can't know if it's a mistake or not, because if it wasn't a mistake, I'll leave my wife. That sucks. And if it was a mistake, I would be devastated. So they're on better footing, I guess. But she's going to talk to the clan. The Lukang clan are negotiating the costs of coming into No Peak, and they reveal that the mountain has been using the refugees to bring in jade from the Uiwa Islands from Zapuño's old stash and then selling it off in Lukang. That's how they're making all their money. But it's also how Lukang has higher crime rates and Barukan gangs. This clan,
so it doesn't come with no cost,
right? And so they're like, we're suffering all the costs, we're getting none of the benefits from the mountain, we're just being asked to take all this. And then they're like, and we want actual potential growth, and we see that with No Peak, where they're going overseas, and we'd like our people to do that.
Like we'd like to send even our own, like the pillar wants to send his own son to get an Hispanian education.
And so then we find out that the Horn of the clans sold them all out to the mountain. He just opens the door and he's like, you should have known better. We need to stay with the mountain. This
was shocking to me, honestly. Like, I did not expect that to happen.
I was kind of expecting it because it's just too easy, but but they come in and they're like, well, the Horn, we promised the Horn we wouldn't kill you guys. We just had to put you into exile. And then immediately the Pillar and the Weatherman like opened fire and they kill them. And Shay is hit in the thigh with a bullet and her shadow is killed. The Horn of the mountain stops her from bleeding and he's like, I won't harm you. That's not in our best interest. And he tells, and she's like, hey, look, like you said that you wouldn't kill those guys. Why would you do that? And he's like, it was for the Horn's benefit of the Lukang clan. Like, you can't do this. And she's like, you guys aren't going to win. Like, this isn't the right move. And the Horn tells her a story about how when Ike came to power, it was because the old mountain clans wanted to break apart. And she did what she had to do to keep them together and keep them strong. And he's like, I foresaw that was coming because my perception's so good, and you can fight but you will never but she will destroy you eventually, kind of thing. So Shay immediately gets out, runs to a payphone, and literally calls her boyfriend. His wife answers,
and she's like, "Where's Poppy? Oh,
where's Woon? I don't want to sleep with your husband." And so Woon. She's like, hey, get people to Lukang. We're about to have a civil war. There's unrest. We can make a break right now. He gets her help and gets everyone and immediately like runs to her super speed. We find out he doesn't even tell his wife what happened, which, what the heck, my guy.
We also find out that this was their freaking anniversary.
Yeah. And so he just like leaves. He doesn't, and like, Shay's not in danger. Like, she's bleeding profusely, yes, but she's like out of the danger zone. So he's just the worst. Lukang immediately goes into a civil war because the clan is not happy with how the Horn went about this, like selling other people out. Some people were siding with the mountain and the weather, or the Pillar and the Weatherman. Some people are siding with the Horn and the mountain, and no one is winning. Oh, also, this is a terrible part because Shay is literally like drugged up and like laying her head on Woon as she gets home. And then she sobers up enough for them to make out and him to feel her up. And they almost do more. But then Hilo interrupts and he's like, Woon, get out of here. And he's pissed they're acting like this, which again, Hilo is right. And he's like, you guys need to either be like, you guys could have had this done already, but now you guys have dragged your feet too long and it's way too messy. So like, what the heck is happening? Anyway. She talks to Hilo and he's finally listening to her again, and they decide to get an embargo coming from Uiwa to deal with the mountain. They pass legislation, and like mountain people in the legislative body are like, yeah, we'll sign on to this because of like all the crime and everything that's going on. So there's an embargo on goods coming from Uiwa now, which cuts off the mountain. Shay goes back to work and she's like, yeah, everything in my life is so great now. And I was like, what? You are breaking up a marriage actively. But then also Woon's wife comes in and like this part drove me a little batty too, because like I get it, but also I don't. Like, why did they have to talk to each other? Like, I don't know.
This was, I think, kind of necessary for the closure of it all. So readers
Yeah,
can be like, I guess we can accept Shay moving on if there's going to be some closure in that other relationship.
I guess. I just because like Kaya doesn't like Kaya's been harmed throughout this, but the way she acts to Shay, it's like, I get it, it's frustrating. And I guess it's because like Shay is in such a position of power that like Kaya has no other choice but to act like this. So you know what? Never mind. I'm on Kaya's side. But she arrives and she's like, "Yeah, he shut out on our anniversary. He didn't tell me where he was going. I'm divorcing him because he's too much of a coward to leave me." And Shay's like, "Well, that wasn't my intention." And it's like, what the heck, Shay?
It was your intention.
And she's like, "Well, then you're way crueler than I thought because like you took him without thinking of me. You did it not actively. Like, what are you talking about? You just did this without thought." And she talks about, and this is what the part that I didn't like, where she's like, "My dad and my brother had beat up one of my ex-boyfriends. They won't do a thing about you." And it's like, well, you were a child and maybe your dad shouldn't have beat up on a high schooler. And also
that seems inappropriate.
Also like to say like, I can't believe they won't go after me. It's like, well, you're reinforcing the patriarchy, Kaya, a little bit, but like just leave Wu. And like it was so much better without knowing that. But she says like she's much more frustrated because no one will stand up for her because the No Peak clan is so powerful. She should just sit there and take it. And I do like that she goes, "I am not a greenbone and I gave 4 years of my life to this clan for nothing." And I'm like, well, that is fair. And then on her way out, she is like, "Could I do anything for you?" And she goes, "Yeah, you can fuck off and die." And I was like, you know what? Fair enough.
Fair.
Keep your mouth shut. Don't be the bigger person in that scenario. You're not the bigger person.
Exactly.
You're not going to be the bigger person. Come on. Anyway. Barrow is now being hired by the Aspedian government to be a spy for the clanless and the Yucatanians because they're like, "Yeah, you have no scruples. We got you arrested for tagging because you're really stupid and kept tagging buildings. And you don't care about any of this. You just seem like you want to like burn the world with you." And so they're kind of also blackmailing him. They're like, "We'll pay you or you'll get a hefty fine and throw him back in jail." And he's like, "Okay, I'll do it for lots of money." And they tell him that they want to find out more about Malavni, and they think he's a type of soldier from Ugatan who like ate Jade and were trained to have very specific skills with Jade to like really make it part of themselves. And they're a very weird group of people. So that's going on. Now we are in the 7th year of Hilo as Pillar. Nico is upset because kids are making fun of him that he thinks his birth mother died in a fire. They're like, "That's what you actually think?" And
I'm so sad that this is what they have told him. But then what happens here is equally
awful.
as crushing.
It's so awful. Like, and then Wen and Hilo are like, "I guess we have to tell him soon." And we find out that Shay and Woon are getting married, and it's literally happening off screen because no one
Which,
cares.
you know what? That is worse than what's going to happen with Nico.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like, it's literally before the ink is dry on the divorce paper. He's like, "Can I marry Shay?" And it's like, oh my gosh, calm down.
And Hilo's just like, "Yes, gosh, please."
Hilo takes
I'm
Nico.
disgusted by you two.
You guys annoy me. You're the worst. Hilo takes Nico out for breakfast and he's like, "So listen, kid, you're gonna hear a lot about maybe I murdered your birth mother, and it's only because I murdered your birth mother."
Oh, here's the thing: we have to sometimes murder people if they don't do exactly what we want.
But also, just so you know,
like, what?
Your father was very weak because he should have murdered her first. Like, what? One of his lines is like,
Nico's reaction to be like, "Am I going to be a terrible person like my mother who wouldn't listen?" He's like, "No, never.
You will be wonderful. You will do everything you
were
ever
raised
told.
by me.
You will do everything you have ever told, or you could be murdered. So just never do what you're not told to do. That's all I'm asking."
And because I sometimes murder people who don't do what I say, it means that I'm a great person.
Also, at this
always
moment,
remember that. Give me a hug, son.
Think about all of this conversation we just said. This child is 8.
Yes.
And he's like,
because he even has the thought where he's like, "He's just slightly too big for me to not put like on my lap anymore." And it's like, then maybe we shouldn't be talking about this
Maybe
kind of
you
stuff.
should be like, look, they're only going to say I murdered your mom because I murdered your mom. It happens. Do you know when you meet someone who thinks they're protecting you, but then they're taking you away from me, so then I have to kill them because I'm not going to let them take you away from me.
Here's the thing, Nico. You need to be mature about this.
Can I go back to watching
he
Bluey
is.
now? Can I go watch Bluey now? Like, that's pretty much on
Oh.
the set. Like, yeah. So then we cut on over to more trauma because Hilo gets a call from Tar, who's sobbing on a payphone. They leave. They find him bloodied in the street with a knife. He has his fists take Tar back to the house. He goes to Tar's apartment and they find in there with her throat slashed. This was just a fight among a couple that ended.
This was a domestic dispute that ended very badly
in murder.
Mm-hmm.
And so Hilo knows that Tar will have to die since this was not like, and there was no reason for this. It was just brutal murder.
Yeah, he brutally murdered her, and it was a high-ranking fist. So and somebody that's well respected within the Greenbone community, and her family has high standing. So
they can't just cover this up.
It's not something they can just cover up. So he's like, well, I know I have to kill my own brother.
So he goes and he talks to Tar, and Tar's like, well, we just started fighting and she wouldn't stop. And it's like, oh, awesome. He walks with Hilo. He knows that he's about to die. He's sobbing. He's scared. He goes onto his knees and Hilo goes to kill him, but he can't. He says he knows it will be bad, but he can't lose another brother. So he banishes him. We do find out to Aspenia without his Jade. Hilo goes back home and poor one is sitting on the floor, like holding herself. And she's like, is it done? Is my brother dead? And he goes, I can't do it. And then he goes, I made a decision way back when to make Tar my pillarman and to make all of his worst parts assets to myself. And that ruined him. And that's not the job of pillarman. The pillarman is supposed to make sure that you are questioned, to make sure the pillar is working in the best interest of the clan. And I didn't make Tar do that. And that was to no one's benefit. And he says, it's always been you. You've been my pillarman from the start. And he asks her to be the new pillarman and to put it back to what it once was. And she agrees and she takes her oaths.
And I think that was a really good moment for Hilo and Wen. But I also think we just need to mention like how the way that he had changed that role, it created such a darkness within Tar, because he was like Hilo mentions, like he was loyal to me with no bounds, and it was something that I took advantage of and made him do despicable things, and it really affected him. And so I am deeply responsible for the way that things have turned out, and I regret that. And so now he's kind of changed his tune, saying like, I don't think that this role should be what I made it, and it's unnecessary for it to be that way anymore. So I want to have a different path going forward. And it's like, Hilo is growing. It's unfortunate that it took this.
Yeah, but it is a very good moment. And it brings us to the first interlude, where we find out about Eon II, who allowed Kekon to be taken over by foreign occupation. He was reviled, and even like the monarchy was tinged to the point where his grandnephew called himself a prince instead of a king to distance himself from the king. But history shows that the capitulation saved lives, enabling warriors to regroup and come back as the One Mountain Society. And during this peacetime, he also sold off possessions to fund the Greenbones. He said he would not be remembered for who he was, but what he wasn't, and the gods would judge him. And this takes us to the 13th year. Andon is working super duper hard as a physician. He is physician number one. It is his entire personality. And he runs into Lot, who is not boyfriend yet, Laura. He's not boyfriend yet.
He's just working on him. He's just patient at this point.
What if he never becomes boyfriend and we've called him boyfriend this entire time?
You know, I will be shocked. But he does mention that he's still handsome. So
he's still very handsome.
There's that.
Andon still wants to get with him. And
he's like, remember when I had a crush on him?
And he's like, what if I reached for your hand? And Lot is like, excuse me, you are my medical professional right now. And Andon is like,
please just heal me so I can get out of here.
And Andon is like, oh, right. So sorry. And then Lot is like, isn't it so weird that like you were supposed to be a first fist and now I'm a first fist? And Andon is like, excuse you. And he's like, well, why did you get there? And he's like, well, Hilo was there for me and no one else was. And it just made sense to like support the people who were supporting me.
He's like, he's the first one that didn't compare me to my father and actually treated me like an adult.
And so then we find out that Andon has to run to Aspenia to show off his skills, so they will pass legislation to allow for medical use of Jade. He goes there, he's helping out for like weeks, and he's exhausted.
Because there are ulterior motives to this, because if they approve bioenergetic Jade use for medical uses, then it's a loophole and they can start selling it there.
Yes, and then they can like make it more acceptable and hopefully pass legislation to no longer make it illegal. So he's working there with some other doctors, and then he goes to a hearing because they're like, hey, look, he looks white. Don't you trust him? And it's like, ugh. And then
Perfect to be on TV.
One of the legislators in Aspenia goes off on like racist undertone questioning, talking about how like Andon has killed before, how Andon was trained in the military, like or in like his school in martial arts. Talking about like green bones as a whole and how awful they are. And I do love this because like obviously it's racist. I'm not saying that. But also Andon keeps being like, I have to answer that question because I am involved with my clan and I cannot admit that. I have to pretend that I'm not involved with the clan. And it's like, well, then you are guilty of some of the things he's talking about, just not from this. They shouldn't be heard from this guy. They should be heard from a party who is actually considerate and knowledgeable about this, but like you're not in the right, Andon. But anyway, he gets very upset during a break. He has to like go to a paying phone to call Hilo because he knows he shouldn't be talking to him right now. And he's like, oh gosh, they're asking about the Greenbone stuff. Like, I'm not even involved in this. And Hilo's like, but I need you to get involved with it. And so like,
here's the thing, get involved.
And he's like, so I need you to go to Resville, which is like an area in Aspenia that the mountain is trying to break into. It's a little bit more like crew heavy. It's a little bit more like hard knuckled, and like there's much more like assets on opening casinos and everything there, which is what the mountain wants to do because that's where they're at their most powerful. And so he's like, I need you to go there and talk to this guy and get him on our side before the mountain gets to him. And Andon is like, I only have 4 days left in Aspenia. He was like, it's too important. We can't pay for a second flight. Okay. But anyway, and it goes back to the hearing. There are people there who apologize to him for the questions of the other man. And like it kind of talks about how the passage to use Jade for medical use like passes with a very slim margin.
Right.
So, and it goes on to Resville. It's a bit more crew heavy. And like he talks to this guy, Remy, who like they find out that Remy has already had the Mountain Clan approach him. And so he's like, hey, you can give me your sale at this nightclub. And so they go to this nightclub. It's like a little bit more sexually open than Andon is used to. And Andon is like, I could get laid right now.
He's like, nobody knows me here.
I could get laid.
It's possible.
I never get laid. I could really use that right now. But anyway, he goes upstairs to where Remy is. So Remy is like, yeah, give me your cell. Like Mountain Clan is giving me this, this, and this. Tell me what you're going to give me. And Andon is like, well, we'll meet that. Or like, we'll do this. We want to really like. And then all of a sudden, Remy is like, hey, why don't I sexually assault you by pulling out my dick and requiring you to suck my dick? And then I'll give you my business. And it's obvious like he wants to humiliate Andon. He wants to be in power in this situation. It is literally sexual assault.
Yep, it's terrible.
And so Andon leans over as if he's going to do it. And then he pulls on his most aggressive voice and he's like, I know exactly what you want. You are someone who lives for power. And I understand that because we are the ones in power. And if the Mountain Clan comes in, they will take over everything. You will no longer be in control of your assets. What we can offer you is we will benefit from you in power, but we will make sure that you are the one in power. We will make sure that you have your own life and your own system here. We will just assist you in that and then gain funds from it. How does that sound? And he knows the guy will take it. So he walks out. And then
that whole interaction made me so nervous and uncomfortable that I was like, oh, what is going to happen here? Please do not let this be bad.
It was deeply uncomfortable and upsetting. I agree. Then we get a fun little POV from Jean Nu, the Horn of No Peak. He doesn't love the Twice Lucky. I love this where he's like, that food is overrated.
Like, but they have a couple good dishes, but come on.
He's like, they lean on the Call's favorite and everything else is bland. he doesn't really eat there. He mostly eats with his kids. He says he lives on the compound because it's like helpful for security, but he kind of tries to keep distance between the Call family. But also he's a little awful because he's very superstitious and he's like, oh, that awful stone eye wife of his and all these people, Then he's mad that like Andon doesn't leave the table. He's in the innermost circle.
I love when he says though, like, Woon's become a little more talkative and outspoken since he married into the family. And I'm like, yeah, let's all be annoyed with him.
Everyone's annoyed with Moon. And Moon is also like sitting there talking and saying nothing. Like he's just saying what everyone already knows and he's not useful at all. He's the worst. Anyway, so they are going to pull out of Lukong as soon as possible because the Civil War is still going on there and like nothing has changed for years. And they're like, well, let's move on to the anarchist who's taking care of them right now. The police are us. And they're just kind of discussing politics. It feels like in the past couple of years, things have gotten a little bit more leveled out and they're like better at strategy right now. I will say that like Fonda Lee does a good job of like showing that like time changes things. Like there's just moments where there's like, oh, everything has shifted. Woon is now a part of the family, I guess, and he's outspoken. And doesn't that suck for everyone?
It really does.
We find out that the Aspenians are trying to dredge Jade from offshore, and this can't happen because like it's bad for the environment, it's bad for all parties, and we can't just allow them to be in international waters pulling up Jade. June's like, I'll go take care of it. He phones up the Horn of the Mountain and he's like, hey, we are not family people with these are not our people. We are Horns, we do our job. Want to go help me blow up a boat?
Amazing.
And the Horn is like, yeah, sure, absolutely, I do. And so then they go and
I thought this whole section was pretty fun, actually, because then they're just kind of like shake hands or do like the little handshake and they're like, we were never here.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was so good. I thought it was so good to see like not everyone wants to be as involved as the Calls want to be involved, and not everyone wants to win. Some people are like, this is their job.
June is actually kind of a breath of fresh air.
I really liked his character where he was like, look, a good Horn, it's not all about fighting. It's all about getting what you need done. I'll get what I need done.
And also just his perspective at the restaurant where he's just kind of like, things are getting a little too interconnected here and we kind of need to mix it up.
Well, and you and I have talked about that where it's like, wow, they really just keep their family members close, don't they? Like they do not trust anyone outside the family.
And June's like, there's enough Nepo babies in the room.
Yes, very much so. Enough Nepo babies in the room. So they blow up a boat. They're like, we won't have any casualties. It won't be a mess. We're just going to leave here. Then we cut on over to Barrow, who's been working as a spy for years, I guess.
Yeah, because he was approached by people earlier. And
yeah, when he was talking to them.
He's being paid a ton of money to try and get information on some of the, like the 4 leaders of this
But
group.
Unfortunately, they also make him go to art museums, and he really hates them.
You know what? He deserves it.
He hasn't gotten any closer to the inner circle, but he is their secretary, and his code name with the Aspenian spies is Catfish.
Which he hates.
I know. He's hung out a time or two with Emma, but she doesn't really care about him. But he is getting a lot of the writings, but they're also like, okay, now get us more. We're still paying you. Like, it's
and they're like,
information.
You need to get closer to her. And he's like, believe me, I'd love to.
I keep pulling the Woon moves and she's just not buying them. No.
Surprise.
He's pulling the Winston. He's just being there, Laura.
He just
they seem to be planning something secret and they have a map of KCOM, but he doesn't know what's going on with them. Wen is working the circuit as the wife and the Pillarman. She's going to Waylan Academy in the Mountain Clan to speak on the environment. She's having some issues with Rue, who's like, dude, I'm a stone eye. Just let me go where I want. And she's like, hey, you're still a call. Like, you can't go into mountain territory. We have to be careful. And he's like, it's 2 blocks. Who cares? And Hilo's kind of giving him a little bit of a wider leash due to not wanting him to feel like left behind by everyone. He wants him to have his own life and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing where Hilo's like, he needs to be able to do some stuff too. Like, he can have some agency. Like, we can't just not let him do anything.
But Hilo and Wen are in a good place. They're having kitchen table sex where I was like, their son just left. Like, yeah, they go somewhere.
They're like, we don't have much time. Go.
Your son could be running back in with his dog at any moment. Like,
he's so ready to just like be able to walk 2 blocks that he does not even think about turning around.
That's fair. I just thought
And
were
they know
chancing
that.
it here. But anyway, she goes to the event. She shares like she meets with one of the Cobins, Rush Limbaugh's wife.
Yes. Who is terrible.
Who's terrible. They're the worst. And they're sitting there just like insulting each other with nicety. It's like, oh, how's your little Stone Eye son? Well, you know all about that. And she's like, oh yeah. How's your nephew changing his name so he didn't have to be a part of your family anymore? Totally. Like, what a good move on you. And so Wen gives this nice speech about the environment and how to maintain it. And then the Coben man, Mr. Rush Limbaugh, Coben Nero himself, talks about foreigners on their soil ruining the natural land, including the dredging from earlier. And he's like, we must maintain only Kekanese people on this land. You cannot make any money outside of it. And it's like, oh, okay. Everyone is motivated by this. And Mrs. Coben is like, we have such a good effect on our husbands, don't we? I told them to give that speech.
And Wen's reaction is just like kind of funny to me, where she's like, well, I totally went in the wrong direction with that.
I was just giving a nice speech on mountain territory, like a nice good wife, and I should have
I
been
thought I was
careful.
just doing kind of a funny thing, and whoops.
Oopsie daisies. And then Wen also meets an artist there who's like, you should speak at my thing, named Juria.
Because it's for like Stone Eyes, isn't it?
Yeah, he wants her to speak at like a charity benefit for Stone Eyes and like learn more about what what it means to be Stone Eye and everything, because I believe he's Abuke. So he's like, oh, we're interested in Stone Eyes, you should come speak. And then we find Hilo, who's training at the Call Estate with Jim Sunto, using weapons that they aren't as adept with. Neither one wins. Hilo knows that Sunto has helped train and bring up the military, and they now have like easier restrictions on those who wish to join the military, like people who didn't maybe complete the academy can go into the military as long as they have 4 years of academy like training. And Sunto has helped them a lot. But after training, Sunto's like, hey, dude, can we go on a walk? And he's like, I like you. You're a fine, chill guy. But like, I won't be training you guys anymore because I'm opening up my own security service company. And Hilo's like, how dare you?
He's
you
like,
took information from us and you're going to be a mercenary. And the guy's like,
Again, how many times do I have to tell you? No allegiance. I just want money.
I do not care about you. I do not care about your people. You paid me and I gave you a service. I have no connection to you. I do not care. I am not a green bone. I do not believe in mercenaries. I believe in the mighty, mighty dollar bill. And so they fight over what it means to have Jade. Hilo threatens to kill him if he ever like sets foot on K-Con again. And Hilo is just real chill about this man who he hired and paid for services. Then chapter 21, we are in the 14th year. Shay is super pregnant. She is traveling to Espinia before she can't travel anymore. Woon is caring but slightly overbearing as a husband.
Because he's had
my shocked face.
He's had past trauma with Kaya, his wife, and I was like, Shay, do you need to be reflecting on that?
Yeah, I know. Shay is traveling with Hami. They're trying to advocate for jade use in Espinia using the advertising firm to help get biomedical jade in use. And she thinks, what a world she's bringing her baby into. And I think what a weird chapter to end on. But we are ending on that chapter because it's a third of the way through the book. And guys, like that is the chapter we agreed to read to. But I think things are about to get dicier. Things are about to get messier. And things are about to get even more bland with Woon, I'm sure.
There's been a lot of time jumps actually in just this short section.
So I can't wait to see where we're going to go from here. We kind of both guessed that there might be quite a few time jumps just with the way Fonda Lee was taking things. So I can't wait to see what more is to come. So make sure you guys are joining us next week to cover chapters 22 through 42. And make sure you guys are rating, reviewing, and subscribing to us. Oh, but first, make sure that you guys are picking up The Assassin of Grins and Secrets by K.E. Andrews, because that was the winner of our indie mission competition. There were so many good books. Make sure you're going to our pod, to the blog post on indie mission, reading all about them and the ones that have honorable mentions for us, and pick up all of them, but definitely pick up The Assassin of Grins and Secrets, because we will be covering it after we are finished with Jade Legacy. We also do a giveaway during this, so make sure you're keeping an eye out for that. And this is just going to be a good opportunity to read what a really good book it looks like. A little bit darker, a little bit of a shift from our...
This would be a big shift from our Miss Percy's era into...
and our romance section of EP Stav. So
Yeah.
I think we're getting into a little bit of grimdark, ladies and gentlemen, and theys and thems as well. But so make sure you're picking that up and get ready to read it, because after we finish with Jade Legacy and after we do our season finale and a discussion with Fonda Lee, we will be covering it. So keep an eye out for the reading schedule on that.
Also, Hannah mentioned it earlier, but you guys need to be reading tomorrow and Legends and Lattes. So we're giving you a little reading material and kind of telling you what to look forward to here. So get them on your list.
We hadn't announced them yet, but we will be having all of that stuff, and keep an eye out for some things coming on the horizon. Keep an eye out on our Twitter for as long as it exists.
I mean, the time's running out for that.
Time's running out, so maybe don't find us there, but find us on Instagram or on Threads, which we are a part of. And, find us on ourpod.com, and
our blog will be there.
Our blog will be there forever, hopefully.
We have an Instagram.
And we have Threads too, and we have a Hive. And we have a Patreon, so join that for very low amounts, just to see what we're doing over there, and make sure it's a good way to support us, and it helps go towards cost of running the podcast. So keep an eye out for all of those things. Please rate.
We really appreciate it. Like, thanks for listening. It means a lot that you're even here, and we love interacting with you guys. If you want to join our Discord and chat, that would be awesome.
Please join our Discord. We put our link tree up. It should have information for all of those things. But yeah, just make sure you're following along with us. We just finished Indie Mission. It's a really important part of this podcast.
The voting part. Yeah, sorry.
It's a really big part of this podcast. It's one of the harder things Laura and I do with deadlines each day. And so we really appreciate all those who participate, who tweet if they can anymore, but redistribute the polls and everything, because everyone's so lovely. So we just want to make sure we give a big thank you to everyone who participated in that, and everyone who listens to us every week. Like Laura said, we're happy you're here. And we're really happy to discuss this book, because I really freaking love this series so much. So please join us next week to cover the next third through chapter 42 of Jade Legacy. Bye.